and that's when you pay your balance of your extra £45,000. Most people don't realise that there's also two most common other property sale methods. 30% of these deals will fall through. Remember, the estate agent doesn't get paid until completion, until the buyer buys. You need to give people an incentive to do that, which is usually the price. The seller pulled out on the buyer that we found. All right, so welcome back to the channel. So if you don't know by now, my name is Perry Power. I'm the MD of Power Bespoke, an award-winning estate agency based down in Reigate in Surrey. But I set this channel up because I really want to share the best advice with the whole world. And this is my way of giving everybody the right advice when moving on to the next chapter of their life. Hence why this is called Your Next Chapter. I want people to be able to have access to impartial, unbiased advice. If you call estate agencies, ask for advice, it's going to be biased because they're going to be targeted to get your house on the market. With these videos, hope you sell well, but it doesn't matter to me because we sell houses in our estate agency. You're probably watching this in Newcastle, something like that, maybe, all over the country, and we would love to help you, but we don't need to help you through Power Bespoke. But these videos are going to help you. And if you're not subscribed, hit subscribe button, bell icon. Apparently that's what all the YouTubers have to say, to get notified when new videos launch. We're going to talk about sale method. 90% of the public don't know these other sale methods exist. So I would say 95% of property sales in this country, the UK, are via what we call private treaty. That's the one that takes absolutely ages. There's a lot of central government push, or has been for the last 15, 20 years, as far as I can remember, to try and change the way, the legal process in this country. It is a bit silly. It is a bit crazy that it takes 4, 5, 6 months for house sales to exchange contracts and become legally binding. It's a private treaty. 30% of these deals will fall through. Many times just because someone changed their mind. It could be 6 weeks down the line, 8 weeks down the line, another house on the market comes and they're like, oh, prefer that one. I'll pull out that one and buy that one. I think it's terrible. And by that time, you, the seller, probably incurred costs for solicitors. Emotional cost is obviously really important as well. Yes, the buyer may have had a survey done, but they pull out of buying your house and they just got to kiss goodbye to that money because they've wasted it. But don't really want to talk about that too much today because that's the way people know. Private, you choose an estate agent, go on the market, have some viewings, have an offer or 2 or 3, hopefully quite quickly, sometimes months and months down the line. You finally find a buyer, agree to terms, solicitors get instructed, survey gets done, mortgage offer gets offered, inquiries are raised, searches are applied for, blah, 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 leasehold management packs are applied for. I'll do videos later on the more detailed side. But most people don't realise that there's also two most common other property sale methods. And those are auction, and I'm going to talk you through why that's a really good option these days. The other one is a sale method that we at Power Bespoke actually invented. And it works really well. So let's talk about auction. There's a misconception that every house auction is falling down. It's not true. Many times people go to auction just because they need a quick, no mucking around property sale. We sold one recently via auction. Really good example. It was a great house, mortgageable, great. Dated, probate, but that doesn't mean it's unmortgageable. The seller just wanted to auction it because they had a buyer string them along for 12 months and then withdraw from the purchase. So they were selling it private treaty. The buyer was dragging their heels, dragging this, taking ages, and then they pulled out. So the seller was like, you know what, I can't do this again for another year. I want to auction it. So the day the offer's accepted, it's legally binding. It's exchange contracts. They have to buy it. Auction is a really good method for people. It's used more when properties are unmortgageable, and they would usually be unmortgageable because of structural issues, land, for example, garage blocks. But that's not the only reason. So don't overlook auction just because you think your house isn't suitable for it, because it isn't falling down. If you need a quick sale, yes, you've got to consider that you may have to potentially, and I say potentially because it's really important, that you may potentially have to take a lower offer for the speed and certainty that auction brings. But we've sold properties at auction where they were previously under offer private treaty. That sale fell through for whatever reason. Seller said to us, actually this time, I'll just want to auction it. The auction sale price was higher than the private treaty sale price. With auction, you've got to lower the price to create urgency. And if you say to a buyer, my house is 500,000, the day your offer is accepted, I want 50,000 quid, you need to give people an incentive to do that, which is usually the price. But auction is competitive bidding, which means get 2 or 3 buyers that really want the place. They got to compete against each other live, pushing the price up, and it ended up going way higher than the private treaty previously agreed price. So auction's a really, really good solution if you need to have the house sold in 6 to 8 weeks. Okay, so with auction, you would have my advice is have a decent 4-week marketing period. Then you open the auction. So in that 4 weeks, do viewings and people can come and view it and have their surveys done and review the legal documents that you as the seller would prepare for them to look at. A nice 4-week marketing period. Then you would open the auction only for an hour. So it opens up. Bidding's open. Opening bid 500, 505, 510, 520, 530. It could fly depending on the interest. The accepted offer, then, they place a 10% deposit. So on a £500,000 house, 50,000 quid there and then to say, here, I'm buying it. And they complete, so they pay the additional 450,000 in 28 days' time. So within 2 months, you could have your house on the market and your money in the bank in 8 weeks. Compare that to the standard conveyancing time of private treaty, which is 5 months. It's a lot quicker, more than half. In fact, a third of the time, almost. So then we've got this one, committed transaction. So I've sold a lot of houses over the years, private treaty. I've also sold a lot of houses over the years via auction. And I decided to create our own method of sale, which fuses the benefits of both. So speed, certainty, commitment is generally the things that every seller and buyer actually wants. Now, this 30% fall-through rate, when I talk about private treaty, it's not always the buyer pulling out. Sellers can be just as bad. We had a situation recently. We had agreed to sale on a house, market sale agreed online. Everything was agreed, price, timescales, fixtures and fittings, solicitors were instructed, buyer had done their survey. Another buyer, who we weren't aware of, knocked on the seller's door and said, I really like your house, but I see it's sold to somebody else. They said, yeah, it is. And I said, well, I'll give you 20 grand more. The seller pulled out on the buyer that we found. It was really not very nice, not ethical at all, but that's what you can do with private treaty. So you can't really blame the seller. You kind of got to blame the process. Auction, as I've explained, is much quicker, potentially accepting a lower price than the market value, the open market private treaty value. Committed transaction is one we invented. Let me explain it because it's really quite genius. With auction, the seller prepares a full legal documents pack before the house goes to auction. The reason for that is this 5 months that it takes through conveyancing is generally because once the deal's been agreed, then the buyer's solicitor will apply for searches to the local council and blah, 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 blah. They will then raise their inquiries and they would apply for the mortgage, and it takes a long time. With committed transaction and auction, the seller does all that before it launches to market, making it much quicker. So from the minute you view a house, you have access to be able to view all the legal documents. Do the windows have a fence certificate, which is a big one that crops up all the time? Was the extension that was done 20 years ago signed off properly by building control? Has it got planning permission? Are there any disputes with the neighbours? Are there any legal easements or rights of way or covenants on the title? All the stuff that causes 30% of private treaty sales to potentially collapse later down the line. What we do with auction and committed transaction, we put all that on the table before the buyer even makes an offer. So when they make the offer, it's warts and all. It's completely transparent. There's no skeletons in the closet, if you like. But with auction, you have to exchange contracts there and then. That's a problem because that causes a problem for people that need to get a mortgage in order to buy. Lenders won't work that quick. So committed transaction is a kind of mix of the two, in that with auction, when your offer is accepted, you pay a 10% deposit on offer acceptance. With committed transaction, you pay a 1% deposit. So with auction, I like to use £500,000 houses as examples, if you haven't realised yet. 10% deposit is 50k. With committed transaction on a £500,000 house, the buyer pays a 1% deposit, which is 5k. Now, for chain-free buyers who are getting a mortgage, to say, I love your house, I've reviewed the legal pack, my solicitors looked at it, they said it's all good, I want to buy it, and here's £5,000 to show you how serious I am about buying your house, and I won't muck you around. That's all the seller wants, generally. The benefit to the buyer is that once that £5,000 been placed, the seller can't then accept an offer from somebody else. Like the example that I said earlier. Knocked on the door, I've seen your house, I'll pay 20 grand more. If the seller does that to the buyer, they're going to get financially penalised as well, because that's the fair thing to do. Then with the committed transaction, you place your 1% deposit. That gives the buyer exclusivity to the property for the next 28 days. That gives the buyer the chance then, all they need to do is go and get the mortgage organised. Contact the lender, say I'm paying £500,000 for this house, I've placed a £5,000 deposit, can I please apply for the mortgage? Lender will probably take, at the minute, 3 weeks to visit the property. That's another thing of the delays of private treaty. They'll visit the property, they'll issue you a mortgage offer hopefully, and then you exchange contracts. And that's when you pay your balance of your extra £45,000 that you would have paid if you were purchasing it or you were selling it via auction. So it's like a halfway house. It gives the speed and certainty of auction, but it gives the protection that private treaty doesn't. Goalposts can't be changed after the offer's been accepted. Buyers place a deposit. If the buyer pulls out or changes their mind to go and buy the one down the road who's just come on the market, buyer loses £5,000. Seller's committed. They sign to commit to sell the property to that buyer for the next 28 days. If the buyer doesn't produce in the next 28 days, the buyer will lose their deposit. It's kind of how it works. But we've had some real great successes with this sale method, particularly from sellers that have contacted our office to say, my house sale's fallen through. I had one recently, actually, where they had an estate agent. The estate agent only had private treaty as an option, but they had 3 sales fall through. And they rang us and said, I'm really peeved with my estate agent. And I kind of said to the seller, look, it's not always the estate agent's fault. Let me understand what's happened. The last one was their fault. The first 2, I was like, look, give them a break. That's really unfortunate for both of you. Remember, the estate agent doesn't get paid until completion, until the buyer buys. But the third one, they didn't qualify the buyer correctly, and it ended up being that they weren't able to get a mortgage. So anyway, they come to us and said to us, well, what will you do differently? And I said, well, it's really simple. We'll take a £5,000 deposit off the buyer on offer acceptance. They're like, oh, can you do that? You absolutely can. Not many people know you can, but you can. We do it a lot. And we sold the property for her to the first buyer that we agreed to sell to. We had 3 offers. Only one of those 3 offers were prepared to place the £5,000 deposit. But that's enough for us. Committed. Those 3 buys become 1, because 1 was prepared to really commit fully, and the sale went through really smoothly. They got their mortgage, exchanged contracts, and it happened from start to finish, actually, in 8 weeks as well. So, same kind of timescale as auction. Again, just to confirm the difference between the 2. Auction has to be a cash buyer, generally, because they won't have time to organise finance, which can potentially reduce the market you're appealing to, and as such, reduce the price that you may need to accept. If you can appeal to the world, everyone in the world, the chances are you're going to get a better price from the world than just that group of maybe 50 cash buyers who are able to buy the property. With committed transaction, it's not quite the whole world, because you have people whose houses aren't on the market yet. They need you to give them time to sell their own house. That reduces the market a little bit, but committed transaction opens it up to people that are getting a mortgage, unlike auction. So you tend to get more money. So your kind of absolute price, the highest price you're probably going to achieve for your house will be with private treaty. Okay? Let's put £3 signs with that. But with that comes no guarantees and a lot of risk. With auction, you're probably going to get the lowest price, £1 sign next to that, and we have committed transaction, middle ground, speed, certainty, the very best price from a mortgage buyer on that day. Hope that makes sense. If you have any questions on this, call our office. One of our agents would love to talk you through the different options and sale methods. But the kind of moral of this story and the point of this video was to just open your mind a little bit to, don't just think, call for estate agents, pick one. You got to start thinking about what legal method do I want to go down to sell my house? And that will be determined by the speed and timing and when you need to be moved by. A good example is school cut-off times. If you really need to get to a new area in a really restricted timescale, committed transaction. If you've had 2 or 3 property sales fall through in the past, committed transaction. If you've already bought another property and it's cost you loads of money to hold and own 2 properties, committed transaction. There's so many reasons and situations where that is the best method. And our agents can talk you through the pros and cons of each, understand your situation, and help you decide which route to go down. Take care.